Hi everyone, my name is Brittany Timberlake, and for this assignment I'm going to be analyzing Kate Chopin's The Storm. The Storm was written by Kate Chopin in 1898, and since we've been taking this class, I have noticed that after reading some of her work, a lot of her stories and writings are centered around empowering women, feminism, freedom, being able to express oneself. And during that time frame, it was very unheard of, especially for a woman to be writing about it. It was considered taboo. A lot of people looked down upon it or thought that it was wrong, and it just wasn't accepted all around. The story starts off with a young boy, Bibby, I think he's around 4 years old, and his dad, Bobinot. And they're both in the store just browsing or shopping for whatever groceries they need. And the father notices that a storm is about to come in, and instead of having to walk all the way back home, in the rain and the thunder and lightning, they decide to wait it out. And the son, Bibby, he shows some concern. He's worried that, his mom's going to be upset or wondering where they are. And during that time, their mother, Calixta, she's at home working hard on a bedsheet and just sewing away and completely unaware that a storm is coming in. After noticing that a storm is approaching, Calixta hurries up and goes outside to collect the clothes that she hung up earlier. And while she's out there, she notices Alki, her old flame, approaching on horse, and he's essentially just seeking shelter from the storm. So she invites him in without pause or second thought, and once they're inside, things start to unravel, or I guess heat up from there. And I don't think that Calixta was necessarily miserable, but I don't think that she was completely happy with her marriage or life either. I think she basically just yearned for something new and exciting and different. Once Calixta and Alki are inside her house, the storm starts picking up and coming to a head. And I think what I found interesting is that once the storm starts getting more intense and extreme, so do Calixta and Alki's their sexual tension, basically. Like their feelings and desires all come to a head, just like the storm does. There is a point in time where Calixta voices her worries about her husband and son, but it's quickly forgotten. But I was not sure if she was genuinely worried about, I'm sure every, mother and wife is worried about her family, but I don't know if she was just trying to say something because she was unsure of what was going on between her and Alki and was kind of nervous, or if she was genuinely worried about them. But it was made blatantly obvious to me that Calixta's sexual desires and wants and needs weren't something that was very important or met in her everyday life. And there's a part in the book that I read that kind of made me think about this, and it says, "The generous abundance of her passion, without guile or trickery, was like a white flame which penetrated and found response in depths of his own sensuous nature that had never yet been reached." And I think this kind of showcases it, where she has all this abundance of love and passion and fire inside of her, and she's been married, I think, for 5 years, and it's just been building up, and she hasn't been able to release it or do anything with it. And I think with Alki coming back into her life and with their affair, I think that she was finally able to release some of that pent-up tension, so to speak. when Kate Chopin wrote The Storm, it was very unheard of and pretty much taboo for women to express themselves, regardless if it was sexually or not. It could be with politics or work or education. It wasn't the norm back then, and a lot of the times the needs, wants, and aspirations that women had back then, they weren't considered important. They were always on the back burner. It wasn't necessary for them to fulfill any aspirations or goals that they had in life. Back then, a woman's main goal was basically to be a wife, to raise her children and look after them, and to cook and clean and take care of the household. And that was it. That was the extent of her use, basically. And for Calixta, I think that Alki was an outlet for all her building frustrations and her not being able to do anything else besides be a mother and a wife. I think that he was a way for her to release some of that. After reading The Storm, I decided to look more into Kate Chopin as a person and figure out who she was besides an author. And what I found out was that she was married to a man named Oscar Chopin, and they had 6 children together. When her husband died, he left her with a huge amount of debt. I think it was $46,000. So she decided to take over his store and his plantation and tried to pay back the debt and get them out of the negative. And while doing so, the townfolk thought that what she was doing was considered very inappropriate. Even though she was a widow, she was flirting and being overly friendly with townfolk in that area, and she even engaged in a relationship with a married man. But when she wrote The Storm, her husband was still, alive and well, and knowing this information about her made me wonder if all her stories and all her work that she did was maybe a way for her to release some of her feelings and desires and frustrations. That it was basically an outlet or a coping mechanism of some sorts for her. I really enjoyed reading Kate Chopin's work, and I definitely plan on reading more of her stories in the future. I hope you guys enjoyed my input and my analysis on The Storm, and I hope you're able to get something out of it. This last slide is just a couple of the references that I was using, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks.